About 6. Excellent. I know we're talking about AI today, and I don't know if anybody uses Zoom on a frequent basis, but this past week they made a lot of updates to the interface on Zoom, and now it turned on a lot of the recording features and functionality, so that instead of using a tool like Firefly that takes your notes and records and summarizes, Zoom is doing that for you. So we'll be testing that out today. They've also launched an AI companion along with it. So we'll give it one more minute and then we'll go ahead and kick things off, introduce Peter, and obviously talking about a hot topic across the board. I know Gary wishes he could be here. He's spending the next couple of weeks overseas, and we'll be back in time for our upcoming boot camp program in October. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I appreciate you joining us today. I know we'll have some people continuing to join us. I'm excited to have Peter Scavuzzo join us, Chief Information and Digital Officer at Markham, as well as one of the first individuals to join us as part of the boot camp program. So excited to turn it over to him in a few minutes. I just have a couple quick notes that I wanted to emphasize. I believe that everybody here probably has already heard from Gary or I about our upcoming events. We've got our Winning Ways conference coming up here in about 7 weeks. We're over 60% sold out. We've really put that conference forward as an evolution of Winning is Everything and focusing on a contemporary topic every year, this year being culture. My assumption is next year will be very much AI, artificial intelligence driven, just seeing how fast things are evolving in that space. It's November 14th and 15th. Okay. Really excited about our lineup. You can check that out at winning-ways.org. I know a lot of you on this call today will be joining us. And then we'll be doing our 5th MPB reunion immediately thereafter. I know there's a lot of other events going on. We do have people coming just to the reunion specifically. Again, Mark Burnett here joining us today. We'll also be talking about this topic on AI and some of the things that they're doing as well, and giving that kind of great landscape.
That I know of.
When I was
talking with Trish, she said,
hit mute. Steph, can you mute him?
Got it.
Thank you. Perfect. Awesome. And then the last note, we've got our boot camp, our MPB cohort 16, starting October 23rd. We have oversold that program, so we have 14 participants. Really excited about those numbers and the activity that we've captured there. We've got our dates coming out for 2024. We've got firms, kind of really leveraging that from a lot of different perspectives. So happy to talk to anybody about that at the same time. For those that have not had a chance to meet Brandon Ferris, Brandon joined our team June 1st. He came from Markham on their growth and events team. We're excited to have Brandon. So you will see his face at boot camp. You will see his face at Winning Ways in the reunion. So I just wanted to quickly introduce him. But Peter, ready to turn it over to you. I'm excited to have you here today. I know you spend a lot of time when it comes to technology and AI. You're investing a lot of resources, both in terms of dollars and personnel, and realizing that part of this conversation isn't that we need to be worrying about building the machine, but as firm leaders, we have got to be ready to embrace this. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, David, and thanks for having me. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces. I know I've been in the industry at Markham for 17 years. I met a bunch of you. I haven't seen some of you guys in a long time. Some I might have seen a couple of years back. So good to see everybody. I'm going to try to be as practical and related to what's going on in our industry. Please interact as much as you want. I'm sure this is the hottest topic out there. There's not a week that goes by, a day that goes by, that there's not a conference, a presentation, or an evolution of this technology. I mean, it's moving at just a ridiculously rapid rate. So anything you've heard, anything you question, just interact, ask, interrupt me, put it in the chat. Dave will just bring the question up. I'd love it to be as interactive as possible. Hopefully you guys could see the presentation. Let me know if you do.
All good.
All right, fantastic. So just a quick background for those who don't know me. I'm Peter Scavuzzo. I've been in a profession, I'm going on 17 years. I started at Markham as the CIO when Markham was, I don't know, 275 people, 2 offices, give or take. And about 7, 8 years ago, I took on the role of driving the strategy around innovation and transformation in our firm, which I built an entire transformation team. So just to kind of give you perspective, Markham has about 40 people that just focus on innovation and transformation for the industry now. And then about 3 years back, with some of on the back of some of the solutions and digital revenue opportunities and tech we built out, I took over as CEO of our tech company, which is a outward-facing, interacting with our clients, delivering technology. So I really have a really good exposure to what's going on in industry, in different industries, our industry, our clients, internally. So I'm going to try to bring all of that together for you guys today. Quick overview. Just a quick agenda, not going to stay too much time on here, and just let's get right into it. So I don't know what level of knowledge all of you have on the topic, so I'll introduce some basics, not spend too much time on that, and really get into some of the meat of this and give you some really good ideas. So this technology is very different than what's happening technologically over the last years. You look at like robotic process automation and workflow automation and the old AI, or people talking about AI, machine learning. This is going to be the most disruptive on so many levels. It's really going to reshape the way we work, think, and create. I'm going to emphasize create a lot because the technology has flaws, and in the industry where we're expected to provide professional guidance and expertise and accurate information, the technology can kind of go off the rails a little bit. So if you think about it from a creative perspective, I think it really kind of grounds a little bit. So some high-level opportunities that are out there, and connecting knowledge, accelerating the ability to make decisions and convert ideas to reality, new insights that you couldn't potentially conceive without the AI technology out there, and being able to converge a lot of systems together. The tech today is, in terms of the introduction of the tech today, where it is, was enabled by really the convergence of the data compute that's been available. Like if you think about NVIDIA, one of the hottest stocks in the market, very high valuation, their computational ability with their graphical processing engines, converging with the data volume we have, coming together at this time has allowed this to happen. There's a barrier for exponential growth in here because the computing power we need to break through to the next iterative levels, as well as the cooling and energy we're going to need to keep all this running, I don't think we're there yet. So I've heard some studies that the next generation of stuff, we need quantum computing, which a lot of companies are out there trying to bring into the market. I think we're going to see incremental growth here, and it's going to grow, but to really break through to consume that magnitude of data at the volumes that will really turn this stuff into changing society and the way we live is going to depend on quantum computing and energy, the creation of a significantly more power to drive all this stuff, which they don't exist today. I mean, quantum computing and fusion power and all those type of things, but as soon as you start seeing those things click, that's going to be sort of the next massive transformation of this. So we have some time to go, but absolutely impactful today, and get into it. What are our peers doing? I'm sure I'm not sharing with you things that you aren't reading in the papers, but PwC, KPMG, EY are spending billions in this technology. I will say, though, if you go roll back the clock, I remember reading some news that KPMG spent billions on Watson. And I'm sure if I asked anyone on this phone who's using Watson, nobody's using Watson right now in our profession. So again, it's kind of one of those things. There's this concept of a hype cycle. Everything that comes out technology has a hype cycle. Blockchain, it's going to destroy the accounting industry. Digital ledgers, everyone's going to have it built into their business. That was 5-6 years ago, and while blockchain exists and it's adding value in certain ways, it hasn't done anything even remotely close to what we thought it would do. And that's part of this hype cycle. A lot of the tech has a hype cycle. Everyone gets super excited. All these companies have to say that they're investing in this. They're leaders in the industry. Then it kind of levels off. And there's kind of this what's reality. I do, though, believe that this is not going to drop off. This is going to stick up at a high level of impact, different than in the past. And I think that's what separates this technology from what we've seen before. Quick history. Everybody started hearing about ChatGPT and OpenAI in the beginning of this year or late last year. It's been around actually for the last 4 to 5 years. Just was nothing to talk about and nothing of merit or nothing for us to be, really overly concerned about. The thing that in the release of ChatGPT 3.5, what really got it to work, and I mean get it to work, is that they decided to spend a lot of time, invest a lot of hours to train it and do reinforced learning of the model, so that when you use the technology, it actually is producing results that make sense, that have ethical human values, and the quality that actually gives a desired response. That was the breakthrough. If you look at ChatGPT 3 in 2020 versus 2023, 3 years later, that's what they spent over the last several years doing, taking the same size data set, but making it actually make sense. Interestingly enough, with ChatGPT 4, which has a lot more parameters in the system, they're having some struggles to some degree, having it be as the quality is not quite what it is at 3.5. The model's much larger, and they released it without as much reinforced learning. And this isn't just about a volume of data. That's another big thing here. The volume of data, yes, gets you access to all this information, but unless you curate it, so it also goes back to the quality, the training, the learning, who's doing that, who's training it, which makes it very difficult if you kind of think about what EY is trying to do. They're going to ingest 100 years worth of tax information into EY.ai. That alone doesn't bring value and success. You have to actually train it, and who's training it. You're going to have to put high-priced people on it to train it who actually know when something is relevant and accurate. And I'll explain that in a really good use case in the way it's impacting application development. So it has some challenges, but it has a tremendous value. So it's kind of this balance that I want to keep talking about. Who's in the marketplace? Here's just a quick idea. OpenAI went right to the top. Obviously, they announced it, and right behind it, Microsoft dropped $11 billion in there, and then Google had to go release Bard. Haven't updated this slide, but they're imminently releasing Gemini, which is a direct competition to the whole ChatGPT engine. And then Amazon couldn't be out there with the big players and not do anything, so they bought Anthropic Claude. So they dropped $4 billion and invested in that to be competitive. But fundamentally, they all are using the same sort of large language models, and they're training them a little differently. And but fundamentally, you could probably get to the same spot with any of these vendors at this point, depending on how much they've trained the engines. So let's get into applications of it. This is real life in terms of, and now I know this is a slide with a lot of information, so don't focus on it. I want to talk about what's going on. I believe, hands down right now, for our profession, Microsoft is probably one of the best plays. And the reason is because we built a lot of our firms on the Microsoft technology stack. And that's a pro and a con. If you're not on the Microsoft technology stack, if you're not in Office 365, if you're not in the Azure cloud ecosystem, you cannot unlock what Microsoft's doing. You kind of, I'm literally revisiting the Microsoft monopoly back in, a decade ago. It's happening again. Microsoft is executing flawlessly. I mean, what they're doing is truly brilliant. You cannot get everything that's happening with this technology. It's just deeper and deeper into the whole Microsoft world. And once you're on Microsoft, you're not negotiating with them. It's an electric bill that the price keeps going up, and you just keep paying and paying and paying. That said, they have the best game in town from where I sit, and we dabbled with considering moving to. We're a blend of AWS, Amazon, and Microsoft Azure. We have both, and we've had both. This to me is tipping the scales, very favorably to Microsoft, because their technology and what they're doing in the core products we have, Microsoft Office, is really a game changer for productivity. I was on when this launched in February. We've been on the phone, I'm not even joking, probably 5 to 10 hours every week for the last 7 months, with sometimes 15 people, 20 people, 8 people with Microsoft through the last 7 months. I'll tell you what we've been doing with that time. and along the way, seeing the betas of what we're about to see. A lot of this is, to some degree, tempering or making sure we're spending our time most appropriately and not spending in areas that Microsoft is going to solve the problems for us.
Hey, Peter, really quick, a question popped up when you're talking about Copilot. Gian was asking, how do you get access to Copilot? I know it's not yet available, but things that you have to do.
Yeah, so let me get to that in a second.
Okay.
So if you are currently a Microsoft Office 365 and Azure client, and you're an enterprise client, you can get, depending on your maturity as an organization, you get access to the beta releases of some of this technology before anyone else sees it. So we have access to a lot of this right now. On November 1, Microsoft is launching to their enterprise user group and commercially the Copilot engine in the Microsoft Office stack. And all these items on the right, if you're looking at any of them while I'm speaking, are going to start being enabled natively within the Microsoft Office solution. I'm going to give you an example. Just 2-3 weeks ago, I was on a call. It was a 2-hour seminar where we have a whole dedicated Microsoft team talking to them, and they gave us a demo of what we're going to see in November. And I'm going to kind of go through exactly what I saw. It was just kind of mind-blowing type of stuff. So you as an accounting firm, as a profession, you just get an RFP or an opportunity to bid on something. And you want to respond to that RFP. And they went through the entire way they used AI to respond to the RFP in, honestly, the entire process was like an hour. And they went cradle to grave. So they went into Microsoft Outlook and they asked Copilot to compose an email that would respond to an RFP in this particular industry. It gave it some criteria and it drafted the email. And they kind of took the email, they kind of parked it on another screen. And then they said, well, who in the firm will be best able to support this industry, this RFP, in terms of putting our best foot forward? So they click to another screen, they open up Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams has a interface to everybody in a firm. And using the Copilot module within Teams, it said, please identify all individuals in the organization that would align to this particular type of response. And it surfaced up 4 or 5 people. It kind of parked that on the side. Then what it did is they went into Microsoft Word and they took the RFP request, they put it into Microsoft Word and said, here's the basis of the RFP we're responding to. So you're seeding in the information you need to perform the next task. Then what they did is they took a sampling of RFPs they have responded to from the organization. So let's say you take 3 or 4 of your RFPs you've created, put that into the engine. And then it said, please build a response to this RFP. And then it proceeded to build the entire response to the RFP using the data that you have within your organization to drive the foundation of the response, as well as align to the RFP requirements from the client. And then what it did, then they opened up, parked that on the side. They opened up PowerPoint and they said, please prepare for me a 30-minute presentation on why our organization is best aligned to be responsive to this RFP using our RFP response, and build it with the profiles of the people we've identified in Teams, in the presentation, and it built the whole PowerPoint presentation. Now they had in essence everything they needed to respond. Now the caveat is you can't blindly just accept what the engine did. What it does do, though, is it significantly accelerated the base content of every one of those items. And that's the key here, is you can't just, theoretically, you could take the email, take the response to the RFP, put the people on the email, attach the PowerPoint, schedule a meeting, and put it all together and send it out. Microsoft would like to think that you could do that. That's not practical. But what it does do is you now have the foundation of everything you need to move forward and take a process that might take days or weeks and turn it into hours and days. That's where the value of this technology really is. It's the starting blocks, where you start from has significantly moved forward. And really, I mean, that's the magic here. And, this slide here sort of captures some of the things that you could do with the Copilot module. So you're going to be able to launch Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, click on Copilot and start choosing how you want the technology to interact with you in order to provide improved productivity. As long as you always put the disclaimer on what you get, you shouldn't just accept. and continually curate it and make it your own as as a second step. I think this stuff, again, significant improvement of productivity. Now, this is just in the Microsoft Productivity Suite, and to me, again, we're all in Microsoft. Right? Imagine the firm who has these tools and the firm that doesn't have the tools, what the differentiator is going to be between the two firms. The catch and how I think Microsoft's, again, brilliant, it's $30 per month per person to have this technology enabled in your firm. Now, if you think about that in scale, I mean, I get nauseous thinking about 4,500 people at $30 per month, and look at the 7 figures I'm dropping just to enable this for all the firm. You get sick if you think about it from that perspective. But if you kind of pivot and say it's $360 for an individual, and how much time, how much billable time are you gaining back with a $360 a year investment, then all of a sudden it makes a hell of a lot of sense. The way we're going to approach it is, this isn't a tool for everybody. It's for people who are involved in processes like I kind of I gave as an example, and we'll introduce it in sort of waves to make sure we're getting the right value and the right consumption of the product. And as we determine that and we identify more use cases, then we'll introduce those use cases as, now you should start using it for this. We've tested it now, and we'll slowly and gradually adopt this. And I don't see how, a couple of years from now, we live without having something like this embedded in everybody's technology tool set. Now, again, this is productivity. I'm really focused on creative, because if you think about all the things I just suggested, they're all creative in nature, right? Create an email, create a response to this, create a PowerPoint. Creative is the key here. And nothing resonates more than with what's going on in real creative and in the marketing world. So here's another tool that I talk about disruption. I mean, from the marketing world, it's completely going to change everything that happens in the marketing. And it's going to allow everybody to be a more effective marketer and navigate the whole business development cycles a lot.
Peter, quick question.
Yep.
Came up as we were shifting from Copilot. Paul was asking, is Copilot a preferable alternative to letting people roam, ChatGPT? Is it one or the other? Yeah.
150%, maybe 1,000%. And I have a slide on that, and I'll get into that as well. Okay. You know what? Let me answer. I'm going to answer part of that question now. When this technology released, OpenAI's ChatGPT, we have all the technology to monitor people's consumption of technology on the internet. I mean, it's part of what we do from a security perspective. We started watching how people quickly started using the technology, and it got us very concerned. We particular concern when we saw professionals in tax assurance and advisory going on OpenAI 100 times in a week. You start saying, well, what are they doing? What are they putting in the system? How are they depending on the answers to this? We shut it all down. Just so some firms, and no judgment, everyone has a different philosophy on what they did with this. At our volume, our size of the firm, and the risk associated is, we blocked all AI sites to our firm probably within, 45 days of the technology really hitting the planet, because we were ultra concerned about the security, and not even whether someone was giving clients advice on what it got back, but accidentally putting client information into the engine and then that becoming public record. That's the real risk here, is if you could absolutely, depending on the technology used and the way you're using it, you could drop a tax return in there or a financial statement and say, hey, please identify, summarize this for me, or blah, blah, blah. But you're also telling them who your client is and what your client's financial information is. And don't kid yourself. Anything on the internet you're popping into a public free internet tool is becoming consumed by wherever you're putting it. That's, I'll get into more concerns on that. Now fast forward, we have secured it, and we're relaunching the entire technology breadth to Markham within a couple of weeks. And I'll kind of get into that. So moving into some other tech, there's a company, Typeface.ai. It's amazing. I mean, you literally just go on and you pick, do you want something to create an image for you, copy for you, a blog post, an Instagram ad, a landing page. You literally pick what you want done. If you see on the left side above this woman with the little pocketbook thing, it says product shot of a sling bag 2.0 on a girl in a city with natural lighting, elegant glamour pose, sharp focus. This is what it creates. That's called prompt engineering. It's a very big buzzword. Is you have to put the right information in. It has to go pull from the right location to get you what you need. But by putting in some prompts, it creates this. On the top, it says generate a blog post introducing Cecily Apple in a friendly tone for young adults. It created the blog post. So now a marketing person could take this and literally just post it on a blog, or go out there and create an Instagram ad and post the ad on there. So the creation of a material it takes a lot of effort to be creative. We have a graphic designers in Markham. I go to a graphic designer and say, hey, I need a logo for, I don't know, Markham Labs. And they give me 4 options. Like, oh, I don't love the color. I don't like this, change that. They come back, oh, change this, change that. A week later, a month later, depending on your level of effort, you finally get a logo that works for you. I recently played with something on our launch of our AI initiative, where I went into the next product, which is Dolly, and I put in there and says, please create me a logo to capture this. I used all the prompt. I put all the context I thought I needed, and I interacted with that tool, and it gave me iterative updates and changes, etc. And I had my logo within 30 minutes of what I needed. And so Dolly is owned by OpenAI. I don't even think Dolly E2 is available out there unless you're a paid subscriber and you're getting access to the cutting edge beta stuff. But very simple, text to images. Monkey paying taxes. That's what it gives you. The image on the left, monkey wearing a funny hat. It adds the hat to the monkey. Paint the robot like a Picasso. It does that. Retouch a photo. You give it a photo with a dog. Say you want a cute cat. It swaps out the cat for you. That's a good graphic designer. 30 minutes, an hour of effort. Split second of effort. So again, heavy focus on creative. Very, very creative in anything that we do creatively. So now getting into some action plan, be ready type stuff. Remember, we have a lot of data that's very important to our clients, and that we're considered the custodian of very confidential information. We need to continue to protect our corporate data. Do not use any public tools to access any generative AI tools and use your data to do anything with it. I mean, highly going to stress that. In order to break through that, what you need to do is you need to leverage Microsoft Azure's platform or Google Enterprise Services to unlock the secure version of this stuff and guarantee that what you're putting into these solutions are not becoming public record. At the end of the day, if you're not paying a decent amount for this stuff, you have to be a little skeptical of where this data is going. I mean, free isn't free. You're in essence, it's like when you download an app on your iPhone. And I read something yesterday that if you actually read the terms of Twitter, it would take you 12 minutes to read, or the terms of Instagram. No one reads them. You just hit accept. And you're getting it for free. Well, why are you getting it for free? Well, because they're taking everything from you and doing whatever they want with it. Same applies here, except your biggest asset, your client relationship, your client data are at stake. So that's the first thing, is always think about that. I talked to a CEO once, or a managing partner of a firm, probably about a year ago, or no, it was probably in May. And he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I dropped my client's financial statement and it was so insightful. And I told him a little bit about what I'm sharing with you, and he almost had a heart attack in front of me. I mean, he was completely freaked out about it. The second thing is training. You need to educate. I'm going to start with the technology team. They need to be ready to assimilate this technology more quickly than they've been able to assimilate things in the past. And it's not just the technology around generative AI. It's how to set up an environment in your firm that can securely enable your ability to turn on this stuff. So if you're not secured in your Microsoft Office tenant, and you're not in Microsoft Azure, and they call them landing platforms, or where you set this stuff up and activate it is not all properly configured and properly ready, when that tool gets released by Microsoft and you enable it, you'd be a little more nervous. So educating just your traditional IT folks, forget your developers and future state people, on what it takes to activate this technology in your organization. I would highly recommend doing that. I'm sending, 20 people down to Microsoft's Azure AI conference in December for an entire week. The conference is a fortune. The hotels, the food, the airfare. I'm sending 20 people just to sit there and immerse themselves and know anything possible that they could get out of there that either spawns a new idea, secures our environment, or helps us accelerate our adoption when some of the stuff is ready. The third thing is transparency that I want you to also think about is whatever technology you use, it's getting results for you from somewhere. Being aware of where it's getting that data and where that data is being collected and what's the basis by which the answers are coming from, not how, but the fundamental data it's pulling from to substantiate some of your results, I think is important. You have to always remember that the data outputs has biases in the model. You have to consider inaccuracy, plagiarism, copyright, who trained the model. If you take 10 entry-level people because they're really cheap and put them all day behind something training it on tax law and saying what they think is a good or bad answer, and then you put your most senior partners and train on what they think is good, I guarantee you that training model will be very different. So you have to understand whatever you buy from any vendor that we consume on a go-forward basis, Thomson, CCH, you have to know how they train that system and where they're getting the data from. So that's the third thing. I'd be patient. Hype cycles cause a lot of stress for everybody. I mean, seeing in the papers, I look at what EY and PwC and all these guys are doing, it gets you a little nervous. Like, we don't want to be obsolete. We have to preserve our industry, our firms. It gives me solace that I'm watching what I watched with Watson and that all blew up. But you have to be a little patient. I think we have to watch this unravel. Just a month ago, I didn't know that Microsoft was releasing November 1, just a month ago. When I presented the same topic as someone else just 30 days ago, Microsoft had not given us a date. And now all of a sudden, November 1, they're releasing the product. And if I was sitting there and our guys our team has contemplated, well, what can we build? Can we build our own Outlook module that helps generate a response for collections? We contemplated all these ideas. Microsoft just eliminated half of them. And if we had exerted any effort, we would have just burned unnecessary cycles for something that a vendor, Microsoft, is doing for us. So there's a patience play here. The world isn't getting rocked, and no one's changing the world in the next 3 to 6 months. Things are moving very quickly. We have to figure out where this all settles out. What's going to be build versus buy. As much as I have a development team, I have all this team. I want to buy every day of the week. Building is not easy, and maintaining it after you build it isn't easy. So, and when Microsoft's releasing this November 1, I'm thrilled. I'm over the moon that Microsoft's doing this and that we're going to have availability to it. The last one is leverage your vendor ecosystem. I was at the executive roundtable for the AICPA just last week in their headquarters in New York with 45 of the vendors that are in our space. You name a vendor, they were in the room. And I was doing a presentation for them, and every single one of them had to introduce themselves and explain at the back end in their introduction how they're leveraging AI for the future of what they think about AI and how it's going to work in their platforms. Guys like Thomson Reuters stood up and said, we have one of the biggest libraries of tax information in the world. We're going to build an LLM on that, and we're going to enable AI access to that. So why not use that and wait for them to produce that? Let them spend the cycles to do that. They have to succeed in the ring and be standing against CCH, and we're gonna get the benefit of a lot of this stuff from our vendors. So again, if you're patient, don't waste some cycles and wait for some of your vendors to get this. You're going to be on the same level playing field with everybody else. There's going to be some secret sauce in there, of course. I'll share with you some of the things that we're doing at Markham. If you guys know me, I'm pretty open with what we do. But you're going to have a lot of gap closing just with the vendor ecosystem out there. So cybersecurity, something else I just want you guys to be thinking about. Every introduction of technology introduces greater risks for us as an organization. And you could literally write the most amazing hacking tools using the generative AI right now. And that's what hackers are doing. The concern I have is, as all of us consume this technology, it's creating another a point or a vector for us to be exploited and potentially be infiltrated. And it's not just us, it's our vendors who are using this technology. APIs, which I'm sure every one of you have heard what an API is. We all use APIs. Those can be attacked if they're used inappropriately. And I don't think a lot of people even think about that. Like when you connect two solutions with an API, that connection is an active stream of data that can be compromised. Well, just kind of, if you kind of play that forward and think that these hackers are using generative AI to exploit organizations quicker than they ever have, or again, I know it's a lot of information up there, but they could, what if they inject information into OpenAI's large language model? What if they infiltrate Thomson Reuters and they train this beautiful tax system and you're depending on it for research, you feel really comfortable, and someone hacks Thomson Reuters and inserts bad data into the engine, or forces a training model to change the model whereby the results you're getting are altered. Those are the things we're going to be up against in this next sort of iteration of cybersecurity threats. And it's pretty dangerous. So it's awareness. It's just thinking about all these things, and we're going to have to really press upon our vendors to really get a handle on what they're doing and how they're protecting themselves. If you're going to stake your client's advice on something you're getting from Thomson Reuters, regardless of how big they are, how are they protecting that content and that information? So industry impact, the first thing I want to talk about is, we're obviously talking about our industry. It's affecting all of our clients' industry. I left this slide in here because I thought it was a good example. I did a presentation with the Food and Beverage Institute, and just kind of an example of, this is a live example, literally live from using OpenAI. What are the top applications of generative AI in the food and beverage industry? I literally asked it to tell me what the things are. And now if you're servicing your clients and we're supposed to be industry experts, how can we not understand how this technology is going to impact them? And being their partner in this, and investing in educating our people. This is the results it gave back. So recipe generation, menu planning, flavor pairing. Imagine going to a restaurant and very quickly saying, I'm having a filet and I'm having potatoes. Please tell me the absolute best wine that's on the menu that would pair with that. Boom, it'll tell you in 2 seconds. So all these things are just great examples, just on an industry level, and why it's important for us to align to this technology, just simply from working with our clients. The place where we started using it immediately is on application development. I think this is a really good example of how it's really disrupting. It takes a lot of time to code and develop product. We've been using this now for like 8 months. Our application development team is actively using this stuff, and it's sounding board for ideas. It's almost like working with a second developer. It could generate your code right out of the gate for you. It could create testing of your code for you. So there's parts of every job. There's this whole concept that we're eliminating jobs. No, we're eliminating tasks. And I think that's something to think about. We're not eliminating the job of the developer. We're eliminating some tasks. And hopefully we're eliminating the tasks which they don't like to do to begin with. Our application developers don't like testing their code, which leads to problems. And testing it at the scale to make sure they don't like documenting their code. So we have developers, all of us that work for us, give us something. Well, is it documented? So if someone else comes in and you replace someone, do you have that? This stuff does all that for you. It sees what you code, it documents it for you. It sees what you coded and said, here's a bunch of tests that we could do with anonymized data to validate that the code scales and works. It'll run the tests for you. But this is a great example of the flaws of this as well. So we've given this technology to our second and third year developers, and you could kind of parallel it to third year accountants. And we said, here, use ChatGPT. Here's the project. Go do your job. Do your job. He gets code and he gives us code for our senior developers to look at. That works. Hands down, the stuff works. He gives us 40, 50, 100, 1,000 lines of code and says, here, I solved the problem. Here it goes. My senior developer looks at it and said, yeah, this works, but I could have coded the same thing in 20 lines instead of 1,000 lines. It's not overly efficient. It gets the job done, not overly efficient. But if you scale that and you take, 10 code pieces and it's 100 lines of code versus 10 at 1,000 line, overly efficient, the thing starts slowing down. You can't actually bring it out to the market or can't use it. It's not effective. Now, on the flip side, if you give the same exact tool to my senior developer, and we've done this, and they use the tool, not because they don't know how to code it, they just want to be further along on the starting blocks. They use the tool and it outputs all their code. They go in there and they tweak it and consolidate it and clean it up so that they don't have to build the outline. Now, my wife's a PhD in English, and she's all about build the outline before you write the journal or the novel. Well, you're building the outline, and then you can actually then build the content and use it as a base. So that's where we're using it, and it's effective there. But if you think we're getting rid of our blindly just accepting code, and the junior developers are going to just change the world because no, they're not. Our smarter people, this is what's great about us, is they're going to get smarter. They're going to be augmented with so many more tools that are going to allow them to provide, unbelievable value to their employer or to their clients. And that's where I think the real magic is. The tool for the younger person is going to help train them. They're going to learn the do's and don'ts. But they're absolutely not going to be producing stuff at the level of a senior person, because the experience, you just can't replace the experience. And that's something we have to consider when we bring this technology in. I kind of look at some things that we could do in the accounting industry, and I threw a bunch of things up here, but they're all sort of have caveats associated with them. Like, how could we possibly ever use AI right now to deliver on anything in the audit world when we don't know what the black box is producing from the AI engine? Everybody, AICPA up, would have a field day, would say, well, how'd you come to this conclusion? Well, AI told me. Well, how did it come up with that? I don't know. So I think assurance is the most, only because of policy and all this stuff and the maturity of it. I think it's the furthest along the lines from just general disruption, but it will help from data quality enhancement. It'll help with fraud prevention, fraud detection. It'll get you some information to look at, but you can't just blindly accept it. So if you run your traditional process and say, hey, use this AI and go look at this another lens, and it gives you some stuff, then you go back to the old way and say, well, that's interesting. Let me go look at the old way and figure out why I missed this. That'll be interesting, but I don't think it fundamentally changes it. On the tax side, I think it has a lot more impact. It could do tax summarization. It could generate insights on comparing returns, tax research. Again, can you blindly accept the tax research? Probably not, but it's a good starting point on understanding things. Maybe you go to a junior person and say, hey, go find me some research on PPP loan forgiveness, blah, 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 blah. Tell me, give me a starting point, and then you give it to the senior person. They use that, and then they use their expertise and go to some other tools and fortify a real legitimate answer they can stand behind. Tax compliance is very task oriented. So again, if you think about that, this affects tasks. Tax compliance is very task oriented. Not tax advisory, a little different, but tax compliance, I think, is a little more ripe for disruption. On the CAS advisory side, I think there's a lot more it's going to be able to do to automate some tasks like routine journal entries or data processing, generating invoices and reports. So for those of you who are investing or building a CAS business, I think you'll see a lot more disruption there. Overall, and operationally, productivity, creativity, again, that whole focus, huge impact there. Even like IT knowledge support, we're going to take every one of our support knowledge bases that we built that our techs are just familiar with and answering the questions for you, and make it accessible to everyone in the firm. So if you're like, hey, I'm having a problem logging into, I'll name your product, Go File Room. You type that in, and it'll literally tell you exactly how to solve that with very, very high degree of accuracy, because it's our data. We know the answer. And actually, let me bring something else up that's interesting. And it's another, I don't like throwing all these words, it's too technical, but there's a word called temperature in generative AI that's very, very important. It's a variable from 0 to 1. When you are on OpenAI, the public version, the temperature is set to 1, which is full create randomization mode, like ultra creative. It's more interested in giving you an experience that seems, oh my God, wow, this is really creative, this is really cool, as opposed to accuracy on what the best possible result is. It was designed to engage us as a society, to bring us into the technology. It was also, depending on who you talk to, also there to help them circumvent the fact that they're taking data from God knows where, and do they have the rights to really just bring all that stuff and license it correctly. So when you're in full creative mode, the randomness is so arbitrary that the output coming out of it is truly unique and creative. Therefore, then that has a negative if you want factual information. In the public products like OpenAI, you can't change that temperature variable. If you consume the technology in your Azure instance and use it, you can. You could shift it down to a 0.6 or 0.5, depending on what your objective is. You could actually make it more factually relevant rather than being completely creative. That matters in our industry, and I want to bring it up. It's one of the few words I'm going to use that's technical, but the temperature variable is part of prompt engineering, the only other second word I used that is really critical to some of this stuff. Impact to labor markets. If you go look online, this is kind of frightening, but here's the top industries or top jobs that will be disrupted as a result of AI. We're at the top of the list. Depending on where you look. I mean, it depends on what the lens people are looking at, but it's not too far if you do some searches and you really go out there and look at, and if you don't say accountants, you just say white collar workers, people in the professional services industries, swap out accountants for lawyers or, whatever, advisors. It's disruptive. And it's people paralleling. I hear a lot of speakers on this. I've seen so many speakers on this topic, ultra technical people who, I have one guy who spoke on this who worked at OpenAI. I just saw him speak. He actually said he quit OpenAI. He went back to his hometown. He plays beach volleyball 2 hours every day, and he's focused on empathy, love, and being back to his humanity because he thinks the world is changing as we know it. And that's the other extreme, right? But white collar workers are actually targeted here. I mean, this technology is targeting what we do as a profession, unlike the Industrial Revolution. And interestingly, if you kind of look at that, the white collar workers wanted to bring that stuff in to make, to really unlock what we could do from industrialization. Are we going to be so willing to give up to AI what is near and dear to what we do in our lives? So if you look at a lot of these jobs, though, some of them are very highly creative. I mean, if you look at reports in journalism, court reporters, web designers, writers, authors, survey researchers, they're all task-oriented or creative. And that's really sort of the blend of it. I'm going to end with this, and I want to leave some time for us to just have an open dialogue or answer questions. You should have an acceptable use policy of AI. For those of you who have left it open, which is fine, again, no judgment. Everyone has a different approach. A small firm could potentially manage the people they have and tell them to never accept what you're getting from the system as the final answer, or don't put any client in there. Just make sure you have an acceptable use policy in your organization. Think about the messaging to your employees. People are reading what I'm reading. People are looking, hey, how's this going to affect my job? I presented on this to some people in our firm, and one of our marketing people go, so you're telling me I won't have a job? I go, no, I'm telling you, you're going to have amazing tools and you're going to be doing much cooler stuff than you did before. Some of your tasks are going to go away. So the largest disruption is white collar workers. That's what it's targeting. Focusing on jobs not being displaced, tasks are being displaced. And I think we have to also start thinking about it as what is not going to change. We're thinking about what's going to change. Sometimes you have solace in the fact of here's the things that this cannot touch, and really focusing on that and really propping your business up and your firm up on here's the things that we're absolutely going to be here for a long time doing. Let's focus on that. Educate and train the organization. I spoke about training our technologists with the launch of the new solution we're going to be doing in a couple of weeks. We're going to go be training our entire firm on what this technology has, the impact, the economy, what it means for us in the future. So we're going to be bringing our whole firm through the journey. Onboarding vendors going forward. For a while, I used to, I'm going back in years, but I used to say, if you're not cloud focused, you're not on a cloud, I don't want to do business with you. Then I said, if you don't have an API, I don't want to do business with you. Well, now it's going to be, if you don't have AI on your roadmap, I don't want to do business for you. We don't want to align with our vendors that are not investing in this effectively for us. And it might mean changing vendors. That's okay. I mean, that's part of what we have to do. Client engagement letters, something just to think about is the data you're being supplied to from your clients generated by AI? And are you blindly accepting that? And it doesn't matter if it's just an output of numbers or not, that what generated that? We can circumvent that by saying, just give us your raw data from your database. But you have to start thinking about this. And in the engagement letters, we're already talking about, like, we're going to put something in there is any technology or AI used to generate the data you're providing us to provide services to you must be disclosed, on contract, and as it's being released. And we need to consider that when we bring that data in, because it impacts the way we provide our service, how we use our clients' data for AI. So we've always been thinking about using our clients' data for data analytics and data insights. Well, how about for AI? Is our engagement letters capturing language that allows us to take our clients' data and use AI engines against it to model something for the future? Just something to think about. This is going to challenge offshoring. If you think about this being task-oriented and not job-oriented, the reason we move things to offshore is to eliminate low-end tasks. If this technology matures at the rate it's going, will we need offshoring, or will it just go straight to AI? And that, and this is an executive decision of, are you about to invest in offshoring? Do you want to potentially reconsider the level of investment relative to the way this technology might impact offshoring? We're going to be we were in the best positions for cybersecurity with SOX and all that stuff. I'm guessing the ACPA is going to drop the accounting industry in the forefront of this. We're going to have opportunities to advise on Gen AI to our clients, as well as forensically look at organizations that use Gen AI. So if a company is making decisions to run their business with generative AI technology, who's holding them accountable and holding their technologies accountable and auditing them to just really have transparency on what they're using that for, and especially public companies on making decisions for the organization. So I think that's where I end the presentation, and love to just, we have about 8 to 10 minutes. I'd love to just open up for a conversation.
Peter, we really appreciate that. The first question that came in your opinion, which vendors, and this is from Ben Wilson, in the tax compliance space do you see leading the way? Is there CCH, Thomson Reuters, SurePrep, some of the newer, practice management platforms? As you said, we might have to change vendors going forward. Any thoughts on who's kind of, driving innovation right now?
So you're not going to love this answer. I don't think anyone's standing out right now. I was literally at the AICPA last week and watched every vendor you could think of speak about the AI initiatives, and absolutely nobody has something to me that was overly profound that we should, put our stake in. You can imagine someone like Thomson CCH with their size can potentially do something more. The other thing we have to weed through is, and I heard it, I mean, every one of these guys had an AI solution or an AI initiative. It's impossible. The word AI is being thrown around like the word cloud's being thrown around. You need to really get under the hood and say, we want to know how you're using the new generative AI technology, not AI. BotKeeper is automating. The CEO of BotKeeper was there, who I had a very with him and got very creative conversation. He says he's been using AI for years, but generative AI wasn't around years ago. So him saying that isn't necessarily this next wave. They don't have answers yet. Everyone's playing catch up right now.
Daniel asked the question if it's okay or kosher to be using AI to draft our acceptable use policy on AI.
Yeah, use it as a starting point and then tweak it. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine.
Other questions?
Oh, hey, one other thing.
Yeah,
the open AI architecture stops in 2020. 3.5 stops at 2021. So when they released that technology, it was based off of 2021 data. So if you asked it a tax law today, it won't have that information in the OpenAI generative AI platform. 4.0 has more, but these things get frozen at a point. It's not this living, breathing organism where stuff is coming in real time. It's not like that. So yeah, that's just something else to think about. That's why creative is okay. Facts, not so okay.
Well,
if you're looking at questions, I like, for example, I was with someone who said, what's the current lineup of the Green Bay Packers? It gave me the 2021 lineup of the Green Bay Packers. It didn't tell me who was on the lineup today. I mean, it was dead on accurate from 2021. Perfect. But as of 2021.
Peter, I found it pretty interesting, the temperature conversation you're having, because that made a lot of sense that I never even thought about.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those unknown things that people really aren't talking about, but changes the whole way the technology works.
Some of the one example I've seen, and then we can wrap up here on AI is I see firms taking their employee handbooks and policies and creating a chat bot. So instead of going to HR, you can now ask a chat bot about certain
Great use case.
Yep,
Yeah, take all of
internal.
your HR's policies, documents, put it into your secured engine, and ask that instead of HR. Yep.
Yep.
Hmm.
From my side, I see chatbots taking over websites in the near future, which comes back to the quality of content you're feeding it, and how you're going to be able to interact with it. We're talking to chatbots going forward. But Peter, truly appreciate your
Dave,
time
just one other
today.
thing. So
Please.
what we're doing at Markham, I just want to wrap up with this. So
Yeah.
in the month of October, what we've done is we've secured the entire Azure instance of the ChatGPT engine within the firm. We are releasing the ability for our employees to safely consume what you see publicly available in the organization and be able to interact with it creatively. That's our first release of it, and that's going to be the way we start introducing technology into the firm. And behind that, the HR thing, for example, it's already built. We just want to introduce the general creative engine, and then we'll start introducing the rest. That's actually launching this month for our firm.
Really exciting, Peter. This was fantastic. This presentation will be recorded and shared. Thank you again. I hope to see some of you here in Chicago coming up in November. We'll keep everybody updated on our final MPB quarterly webinar. Peter, again, thank you so much for your time and really appreciate it. Everybody have a great rest of your week.
Hey, thanks, everybody. Good to see you.
Peter, I appreciate it.